Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that someone quietly removed 5% of the money from your wallet overnight. No thief, no warning, no notification. Your bank balance still shows the same number. Your salary hasn't changed. Nothing looks different. And yet somehow, you're poorer. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. It happens all the time, quietly, legally, systematically, and almost nobody calls it what it really is: a tax. Not the kind governments announce in budgets, not the kind politicians campaign on. A hidden one. An invisible tax you pay every time new money is printed. Right now, somewhere in the world, a central bank is creating new money, not by printing stacks of physical bills like in old movies. Most of the time, it's just numbers appearing on a screen, a few keystrokes, a few trillion added to the system. The official explanation usually sounds reassuring. We're stimulating the economy, we're supporting growth, we're preventing recession. And sometimes those goals are real. But there's a side effect that rarely gets explained clearly, because when new money enters the system, it changes the value of the money that already exists. Think of money like slices of a pie. If there are 10 slices and you own one, you control 10% of the pie. But if someone suddenly adds 10 more slices without telling you, your slice hasn't changed, yet now you only own 5%. The slice is the same size. The pie just got bigger. This is essentially what happens when money supply expands. Your currency gets diluted. To see how this works in real life, rewind to 2020. During the global pandemic, economies around the world began to shut down. Businesses closed, jobs disappeared, markets panicked. Governments faced a terrifying question: how do you keep the financial system alive when everything stops? The answer was simple: create money. The United States Federal Reserve alone created over $3 trillion within months through programs like quantitative easing and emergency lending. Europe, Japan, and many other economies did similar things. It was one of the fastest expansions of money supply in modern history. At first, nothing seemed broken. Stock markets recovered, banks stayed stable, stimulus checks arrived. It looked like the system had been saved. But then something else started happening. Prices began creeping upward. Not overnight, not all at once, but slowly, everywhere. Food, rent, cars, energy. The cost of living started rising. And suddenly, people began asking a strange question. Why does everything feel more expensive, even though my income didn't change? The answer hides in a concept economists call inflation. But the word inflation often sounds abstract, almost harmless. In reality, it's simply the process of money losing purchasing power. If a loaf of bread costs $2 today and $3 next year, your money didn't grow weaker because bread became magical. Your currency just buys less than it used to. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. When new money enters the system, it doesn't appear evenly in everyone's pockets. It enters through specific doors, usually banks, large financial institutions, government spending programs. The people closest to those doors get access to the new money first. They can spend or invest it while prices are still relatively low. Economists call this the Cantillon Effect. Those closest to the source of new money benefit first. Those furthest away pay the cost later. By the time the new money spreads through the economy, prices have already adjusted upward, and everyone else experiences the result: higher living costs. Your salary didn't shrink, but your purchasing power did. This is why some economists describe inflation as a hidden tax. because just like taxes, it transfers value. But instead of money leaving your bank account directly, the value of your money quietly erodes. No vote required, no bill passed in Parliament, no line item on your paycheck, just prices rising. Imagine the government announced tomorrow, "We are introducing a 6% national tax on everyone's savings." There would be outrage, protests, debates, headlines everywhere. But if inflation runs at 6% for several years, the financial effect can be almost identical. But it feels less obvious because the numbers in your account never change, only what those numbers can buy. There's another twist to this story. Inflation rarely hurts everyone equally. People who own assets, like stocks, real estate, or businesses, often see those assets rise in price during inflationary periods because the new money flowing through the system pushes investment prices higher. But people who rely mostly on cash savings or fixed salaries feel the squeeze first. Rent rises, groceries rise, fuel rises, but their income lags behind. Over time, the gap between asset owners and wage earners quietly widens, not through some dramatic economic collapse, but through a slow shift in purchasing power. None of this means printing money is always wrong. During crises, central banks sometimes step in to prevent financial systems from freezing. Without intervention, recessions can spiral into depressions. The problem isn't that money creation exists. The problem is that its costs are rarely discussed in the same breath as its benefits, because the effects arrive later, and by the time they appear, the cause is already forgotten. Prices go up, people blame corporations, or supply chains, or greedy businesses. Sometimes those things play a role, but the deeper story is usually hiding underneath the surface, in the supply of money itself. And here's the strange irony. Most people work incredibly hard to earn money, years of education, long hours, careful saving. But very few people ever stop to ask a basic question: what exactly determines the value of the money they're working for? Who decides how much exists, and what happens when that amount changes? Because every time the money supply expands, every existing dollar, euro, rupee, or yen shares the cost, not through a bill in the mail, not through a tax form, but through something much harder to notice: a slow, silent reduction in what your money can actually buy. The invisible tax isn't collected by force, it's collected through time, through rising prices, through diluted currency, through purchasing power that quietly slips away year after year. And the most unsettling part, it happens whether you understand it or not. So the real question isn't just why money gets printed. The real question is this: if creating new money redistributes wealth across the entire economy, who should control that power?